Hi everyone, I'm Isaac Leillhikar. Recently I received a Christmas present from YouTube. A video was made by my favourite anti-Christian.
Welcome to Paulogia, where a former Christian takes a look at the claims of Christians.
I trust that our time together has cemented your faith in the reality of the incarnation.
That's going to be a no from me, Lee.
This way he's my favourite because he's so funny. But apart from that, he's no different. In the long run, I was planning on refuting his whole thing, which was going to be a lot of work, and then...
In the end, all of the pretenders are ruled out, and the baby in the manger is pinpointed as the one and only Messiah and Son of God.
Okay, so this one's going to be about prophecy. When it comes to Old Testament prophecies about Jesus...
Just what I wanted. It's my favourite subject.
Messianic prophecy is outside my normal New Testament comfort zone. So let's get a...
He's always inviting and drawing Bart
Dr.
Ehrman.
Bart Ehrman.
Thanks for having me.
This time he didn't, but again, he seems to have hired the wrong people to help him.
How about Dr. Kipp Davis, a specialist in Second Temple Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls? He has his own YouTube channel where he shares his one-of-a-kind expert knowledge. Let me thank Kipp for stopping by.
It's been fun, Paul.
Then again, how do you invite the right person to do this job? It's just such a dead cause.
How many of these supposedly fulfilled prophecies about the Messiah mentioned by Lee actually even contain the word Mashiach?
And in fact, he isn't even called the Messiah at first. First time we hear about him is in Genesis chapter 3, being the one who's born a woman and is going to crush the head of the one who deceived them. And she already knew that he was divine. You can see because a bit later, because she doesn't understand that it's actually a descendant of hers that's going to give birth to him. When she gives birth to a man, she thinks it's God. It's not that well known, but Eve is saying, I have given birth to a man, the Lord. And it's translated wrongly, I have given birth to a man with the help of the Lord, which it doesn't say. It continues along, saying that he's going to be born of Abraham. Balaam prophesies, I see him but not yet, a star rising, a king with the scepter will rise up in Israel. The word Mashiach means anointed with oil. And then in Psalm number 2, you see it all together, that there's this king of Israel that's going to rule over everything and that he's divine and he's Messiah. I don't know what you thought that the Messiah was.
When bloodthirsty King Herod asked his chief priests and teachers of the law where the Messiah would be born, they didn't have to think very long before they answered. They knew in a prophecy recorded in Micah chapter 5. But you, Bethlehem, though you were small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me the one who will be ruler over Israel.
My personal favourite. His origin is from ancient days, from eternity.
It's not just Micah 5, Isaac. Isaac, I know you're trying to impress me and show me that you know your stuff. And the more you do that, the more I'm going to send you to Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's not just Micah 5:2. It's also based on Psalm 72:17. It's also based on their reading of Genesis 1, verse 2. It's also based on their reading of Isaiah 11, verses 1 and 2. Why is this guy trying to impress me?
I wasn't. That was pretty cool, right?
This story is in the Gospel of Matthew, right? No outside corroboration of it from any other source anywhere?
Here we call that, for the Bible tells me so.
And that's that Bugs Bunny's equivalent of, what's up, Doc? The thing is, he does that for meaning, it's as if the Bible contaminates something and it's not true anymore. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating that much saying, it's as if the Bible says that the colour of human beings' blood is red,
Or the Bible tells
he
me
will...
so. The only attestation of an empty tomb is...
See, he actually treats the Bible less than other books. It can't even be whatever it is that somebody wrote something down on a piece of paper at this time. What happened where he was.
Details from John are merely...
He cites fragments of prophecies in Isaiah 7, 9, and 11 while ignoring the contents.
The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. First, say the critics, this prophecy was for King Ahaz of Judah.
This is true. Isaiah is dispatched by Yahweh to meet the king and deliver a message. He goes on to instruct Ahaz to ask for a sign of the truth of his message. But Ahaz refuses, and Yahweh is prompted to give him one anyway.
There was a broader messianic context that remained unfulfilled.
This really feels like Lee is shifting the goalposts here.
He's not shifting any goalpost. If you look at that goalpost, it's talking to a snake, and snakes don't care for their offspring. They just lay eggs and leave them. So for them, having children just means procreating. It doesn't say the seed of the man, just the woman all by herself. This is the famous messianic prophecy that Matthew quotes, talking about the fact that a virgin is going to give birth. Well, how is that about that this time?
Hold on here. The word used by Isaiah, Alma, is with reference to a young woman. It is often there by implication, but it is pretty presumptuous of Strobel to say that it is never used of a non-virgin.
As one researcher told me, if any notion of virginity were intended, even as only an implication, Alma was the best, only word to do that job.
This is precisely the opposite of how the two words Alma and Betula appear to actually be used in the Hebrew Bible. Evangelical scholar John Walton, of all people, has posited a woman ceases to be an Alma when she has become a mother. Betula is the word of choice.
The greatest Jewish commentator on the ancient scriptures is known by the acronym Rashi. He was a medieval French rabbi whose analysis of the Jewish writings is still considered to be the centerpiece of contemporary Jewish study.
He's right.
And, he said, incapable of giving birth.
In attempting to gauge the original intended meaning of a scripture passage, Rashi is probably not the best source.
The more I leave that without comment, the better. By the way, did you know Maimonides admits that Isaiah 53, that doesn't say the word Mashiach, is about the Messiah?
Yet we considered him punished by God, but he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him.
Here we are at the most famous of all the Old Testament messianic prophecies, which, once again, and like every one of the above examples, does not even explicitly mention the Messiah. So it would seem most natural to think of this figure in these texts as a poetical, metaphoric personification of the people of Israel or Judah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. In fact, in general, that's often something that you can find, is that some passages are talking about God, and they're also at the same time talking about some things that God talks about. But the point is, these wouldn't make any sense unless... And it's sort of like you realize at the last minute that he's talking about the Messiah.
I think it is also worthwhile to point out that scholars are in wide agreement that this particular text was not written by Isaiah some 7 centuries before Jesus' birth.
You mentioned, and for everybody else's benefit, published commentaries on Isaiah will say that Isaiah finishes in chapter 39 and starting with chapter 40, or right around there, you have Deutero-Isaiah, which is written by someone else, and it's
long after this, at the time of the Babylonian exile, and
redacted in at a later time, and it's not actually Isaiah. And so I'd say about minimally 85% of the available commentaries, including most at evangelical seminaries, would have that kind of a perspective. Do I have any evidence that the apostles viewed Isaiah in this way? And then you go, why do scholars take this perspective? And then the biggest reason is it names Cyrus by name, and we know God can't do that before Cyrus comes along.
The last part of the book, chapters 56 to 66, was written, also anonymously.
That reminds me of my favorite quote, my favorite thing ever said by an unbeliever.
Well, the book of Isaiah has material that stretches over several centuries. Of course it does. And it only has the name of one prophet.
Yes, but that's a historical fact.
We actually have some evidence from the Dead Sea Scrolls which supports this idea. There are 18 copies of the book of Isaiah. Only 2 appear to have contained all 66 chapters. The remaining 16 manuscripts comprise only portions of either 1st Isaiah or 2nd and 3rd Isaiah.
So let's boil this down. You found 18 fragments of the book of Isaiah. Most of them don't overlap the parts. 2 of them do, and some of them overlap one of the other. Okay.
Gospel writers found dozens of Old Testament passages to validate their idea that Jesus was the Messiah. So much so that it seems like some of the stories about Jesus arose specifically to strengthen fulfilled prophecy ideas.
Violating prophecy criteria number 6. People are actively attempting to make it happen. And maybe 5 and 2 and 3. All of them, really.
The Psalms foretold his betrayal, his accusation by false witnesses.
Oh, and Irenaeus gives a lot of those in his book, The Demonstration of Faith. I recommend you find that. It's a flipping lead box.
Pierced in the hands and feet, even though crucifixion hadn't even been invented yet.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Lee goes on to make the same tired claim about how Psalm 22 predicts Jesus' manner of death. Dogs have surrounded me. A band of evil men has encircled me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. This claim stems from an English mistranslation of the Greek text, which literally means they dug, in a really weird way for describing impalement of any kind. That last clause in the Greek text reads, Huroxon chairos mau kai podos, which literally...
Dude, some Greek-speaking cartoon characters watched you. Seriously though, I recommend you watch cartoons to get the pronunciation right. It's what I do. As far as I know, this is the way you say it. Urixan sheirasmu ke podos. So she overreacted a bit, but you can understand why Hellenic Clover, daughter of Pele, was so angry and why he scared the other two. As I can imagine for real Greek people hearing seminarish.
Huroxon chairos mau kai podos.
And wished to send prematurely Ashaeans in millions to Hades. I think she's going to cool down, but watch your back while you're drawn next time.
There are solid reasons for thinking that it was Orgistheus.
We have some insight into this from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Parts of this psalm, including this verse, and it appears to be a badly misspelled Hebrew version of what is translated in the Septuagint. It seems most likely that the last letter, a yod, was misread by a scribe to be a vav. Vav and yod can appear almost identical.
That sort of reminds me of when Johanna was making a video about the fact that God supposedly had a wife. Really, this pagan goddess Asherah. Solomon worshipped her.
Oh damn, like the redaction is real.
Doesn't give very much stuff that we don't already know and shouldn't be seeing any different than we already have. But then she brings up this. This part of the video actually got a bit hectic.
It said, Yahweh came from Sinai and at his right hand his own Asherah. I went through all the translations.
Now what it really says is he's flaming torch.
They erased her. They deleted her.
I looked up the Masoretic text. It doesn't say Asherah, it says Ashdod. And I put out this comment and I don't know if you've seen it. I hope the people that watch her channel can see this. Even to you, look, the two words just look very similar.
The Hebrew text of this passage reads, like a lion, my hands and my feet. This is also an odd sentence since it lacks a verb.
Now that sort of reminds me of this case with Psalm 110. That's the Messianic psalm that Jesus is quoting when he's at the temple. Which, reading the Septuagint, you see that it says this. Out of the womb I begot you at the dawn. Most of the Masoretic text, just forgetting one letter and then all the other words in all their context, changes around the phrase and now it's saying, yours be the dew of your ladhood. The ESV says, quote, the meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain, with the extra kaf, which stands for saying as, before you say something. Textual variants even exist, and now even the whole grammar is reorganized and the whole context is different, and now this is what it's saying. From the womb, from the dawn, as the dew I begot you.
How could he arrange for the Sanhedrin to offer Judas 30 pieces of silver to betray him? How could he have arranged for his resurrection?
Do we have any confidence that those things actually happened?
See what I mean? He even does that to Luke. Well, this is what he thinks about Luke. I've heard him say this in another video.
Luke was not an eyewitness to the events, but rather a collector and a compiler of anecdotes. This gospel is at best second-hand, but could just as well be 20th hand.
Which part of I investigated everything back to its very source don't you understand? And yeah, that is what it means. Since you're a cartoon character, go and ask the Greek overdubbed Tuteli Space. Actually, don't do that. Don't do that. And don't go near Ash Ketchum either. All the cartoons that mean so much to us.
I agree that the swoon theory isn't particularly compelling, but it continues to live on primarily because the Islamic Quran records that Jesus didn't die on the cross.
Yeah, maybe you should invite him for his opinion next time.
drawing the prophet, putting him in the thumbnail, all those things.